Take a razor blade, the thinnest one you can find. Now press it against the joint between two stones. It doesn't fit. Not because the stones are cemented together. There is no mortar here. It doesn't fit because 500 years ago, someone carved two irregular, interlocking surfaces so precisely that the gap between them is smaller than the edge of a blade. Now step back, because these aren't bricks. These are boulders. Some of them weigh 200 tons. They stand 3 stories tall, and they are fitted together like the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, each one a unique shape, no two alike, every surface curved and angled to lock against its neighbors with a tolerance that modern engineers struggle to explain. This is Sacsayhuaman, and no one can tell you exactly how it was built. Sacsayhuaman sits on a steep hill just north of Cusco, the former capital of the Inca Empire, at an altitude of 12,142 feet. The name likely derives from Quechua. Some translate it as satisfied falcon, others as speckled head. The Spanish soldiers who first saw it in 1533 called it a fortress. Modern archaeologists are less certain. What remains today is a series of 3 massive parallel walls built in a zigzag pattern along the hillside. The walls stretch for nearly 400 meters. The largest stones in the lowest tier weigh between 100 and 200 tons. Some stand over 9 meters tall. The construction is attributed to the Inca emperor Pachacuti, who began a massive rebuilding program in the mid-15th century. His successors, Tupac Inca Yupanqui and Huayna Capac, continued the work. According to the Spanish chronicler Pedro Chiesa de Leon, writing in 1553, the project required a workforce of 20,000 men, drawn from across the empire through the Mita labor system, and it took decades to complete. Here is what makes Sacsayhuaman impossible to ignore. The Inca had no wheels, no iron tools, no written language for engineering blueprints. Their hardest available metal was bronze, which is softer than the andesite and limestone they were cutting. The nearest quarry for some of these stones was at Huacoto and Rumicolcha, 35 kilometers away. That means they quarried blocks the weight of a blue whale, dragged them across rivers and up mountainsides, and shaped them into irregular, polygonal forms so precisely fitted that the joints are practically invisible. How? The quarrying likely began with fire and water. Workers would heat the rock face with bonfires and then douse it with cold water, causing fractures along natural fault lines. Stone hammers made of harder river cobbles were used to pound and shape the blocks. The transport remains the most debated question. Experimental archaeology suggests a combination of log rollers, earthen ramps, and enormous teams of laborers pulling with braided grass ropes. One chronicler described how a stone being moved uphill broke free and crushed 300 workers. The Inca called it the stone that got tired, la piedra cansada. It still lies where it stopped, abandoned at the edge of the construction site, a monument to the human cost of this project. But the biggest mystery is not the quarrying or the transport, it is the fitting. Each stone at Sacsayhuaman is a unique, irregular polygon. Some have as many as 12 angles. No 2 blocks are the same shape, and yet they interlock with their neighbors so tightly that 5 centuries of earthquakes have not opened a single gap. This is not how you build with square blocks and mortar. This is something else entirely. The technique is called polygonal masonry, and it appears not just at Sacsayhuaman, but across the ancient world. The walls of Mycenae in Greece, built 1,000 years before the Inca. The Hittite capital of Hattusa in Turkey, the megalithic platforms of Easter Island, 4,000 kilometers across the Pacific, the same impossible, irregular, razor-tight joints, the same unknown method, and no cultural contact between any of these civilizations. Then there are the anomalies. Several researchers have reported what they call vitrification, a glass-like sheen on certain stone surfaces, as if the rock had been partially melted. If confirmed, this would require temperatures far beyond anything achievable with Bronze Age technology. Local Quechua oral traditions speak of a plant whose sap could soften stone, allowing it to be molded like clay and then hardened again. No such plant has ever been identified by Western science, but the legend persists. Garcilaso de la Vega, the half-Inca, half-Spanish chronicler writing in the early 1600s, recorded what the people of Cusco said about Sacsayhuaman. He wrote, "It is believed that the devil himself built it, for it seems beyond the power of men." On March 31st, 1650, a massive earthquake struck Cusco. The colonial Spanish buildings, churches, mansions, government offices collapsed into rubble. The Cathedral of Santo Domingo crumbled, roofs caved in, walls fell into the streets. Hundreds died, but beneath the Spanish city, something survived. The Inca foundations did not move. At Sacsayhuaman, the colossal zigzag walls stood exactly as they had for 2 centuries. Not a single stone shifted. The polygonal joints held. Here is the revelation that makes this fact so extraordinary. What you see at Sacsayhuaman today is not the complete structure. It is the skeleton. After the Spanish conquest, Sacsayhuaman was systematically dismantled. The colonial government used its stones as a free quarry, hauling them downhill to build Cusco's cathedral, its churches, and its colonial homes. They took everything they could move. What remains at the site is precisely what was too heavy to remove. The largest, most megalithic blocks, the ones that weighed 100 tons or more. The Spanish couldn't budge them, and those are the stones that survived the earthquake that destroyed everything the Spanish built on top of them. The Inca built for eternity. The Spanish built for convenience, and the earth itself decided which approach was superior. Today, Sacsayhuaman is a UNESCO-protected archaeological site. Every June, it hosts Inti Raymi, the Festival of the Sun, a modern recreation of the Inca solstice ceremony that draws thousands of visitors. But the fundamental questions remain unanswered. Modern stonemasons have attempted to replicate polygonal masonry at small scale. They can produce tight-fitting joints between 2 or 3 stones, but no one has successfully replicated the technique at the scale of Sacsayhuaman. With 100-ton blocks, no metal tools, and joints accurate to fractions of a millimeter across dozens of interlocking surfaces. Some engineers have proposed trial and error fitting, grinding stones against each other over months until the surfaces matched. Others suggest templates carved from wood or clay. A few have proposed acoustic levitation or lost technologies that leave no archaeological trace. None of these explanations are fully satisfying. The uncomfortable truth is this: somewhere in the 15th century, a civilization without the wheel, without iron, and without written engineering plans achieved a level of stone-fitting precision that we cannot fully explain or replicate today. And they did it with 200-ton rocks on the side of a mountain at 12,000 feet.